And welcome to Justice Serve TV. We are live. Michael Bryant here, Linda Kenny Baden on assignment in Harvard, teaching those mushy brains. So, the Uvalde case back on track, but not before more drama. We'll get into that. And the Ohio dentist, that double murder case, believe it or not, a domestic dispute call from that house just months before the murders. What does that all mean? And Sarena Townsend is here to help me sort things out.
Justice, where are you? Michael and Linda are here.
Love you, Linda.
The world is justice. Will we ever find justice?
The courthouse the other day in the hallway, you're singing
Will
"Oh
we
Happy
know
Day."
justice when we see it? To be and down, may I lead the way. Hoping justice will win the day. It's Nary clues, finding justice where we can. Join us now, we're on the run. Justice is waiting, we'll see it done.
And hey, folks, good to have you along. Appreciate you joining on this Thursday night. Hey, check this out. Look at that. Let me. There we go. That's proof of, well, I don't know, lifelessness. Yeah, proof of lazy. Haven't had walks with Domino the last few days, so I haven't reported officially, but he's fine, resting up from another difficult day. So we're not going to do rip and read here because I need help with the one item that I wanted to get into, which is this Ohio case. As you know, the dentist and his wife found dead on the 30th of December, and it's still a mystery. Nobody knows, at least the cops are not saying anything suggesting who they know, who they think it might be, a person of interest. We saw that grainy video of some guy, maybe a guy, in a hoodie wandering the streets there in the same general area between 2 and 5 a.m. They were found shot to death. And the heartbreaking part, if that's not bad enough, 1 and 4-year-olds in the house with them when they were finally discovered the following morning. So those little babies there for minimum 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours. And you can just imagine what that was like. So we've been following that to see if there's a break. And I don't know if you call this a break or not, but before I get into those little details, let me welcome, you know her, you love her, for your listening and dancing pleasure. Here is Sarena Townsend. Hello there, miss. How are you?
Hi, Michael. It's good to be back. Nice to see you.
Nice to have you. Appreciate that. And we had a little chat before we got on. If people are wondering if you're in a hostage video, you're in a new home, and so it takes a while.
Blank walls. I have so many things that I could put up here, but it's like analysis paralysis. I can't figure out what to do.
It looks like some nice molding, though.
Yeah, we do have some nice molding, some equidistant spare molding over here, and hopefully we'll get it going. But for today, it's just a blank slate. Really boring.
That's all right.
No skeletons behind me. No adorable dogs. Nothing. I got nothing.
We're not here to look at the walls. We're here for you. We want to see
Okay,
you.
cool.
Okay. And so you've been following, I'm sure, this Ohio dentist case, the double murder there. And so the two new nuggets of information that have come out are that in April, 8 months before this happened, there was a phone call to the cops about a domestic disturbance there. Now, it's a great headline, but as you dig further into it, it turns out it was they apparently had a lot of parties there, just adult, gatherings. Alcohol may have been consumed. And a woman had called having an issue with her own partner, but at their house. So it comes out as a domestic dispute at their house, not involving them. Then there was another event, and this took place just a few days earlier. This was on the 19th. They were discovered on the 30th. On the 19th, a neighbor a few doors down calls 911. Somebody's pounding on her door to get in, and that's not good. But one of the things that kind of got my attention was, as you may remember, there were a lot of 911 calls the morning these folks were missing. He's a dentist. His partner is looking for him. The office is looking for him. People go out to the house. The cops go out and do some sort of, hey, we knocked on the door. We didn't hear anything. The friend goes out, or the coworker, and hears these kids in the house. And that's when they call the cops again and say, and the 911 operator says, is there anything new since somebody called last time? I mean, just outrageous. But the cops finally go, and only when somebody looking through the windows sees a body. I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I say that because in this case where the guy's pounding on the door and a woman calls at 2:30 in the morning, hey, there's somebody pounding on the door. I don't know who it is. He leaves at 2:43. The cops never even go out there. They never even go to check it out. So what's your take on this kind of mystery where everything, no forced entry, kids are left in the house, people's minds are running wild with possibilities here.
Yeah. Well, first of all, this whole thing about the cops being called in different times, it's a little bit hard. We do see sometimes the Monday morning quarterbacking, right? Where it's like, oh, they should have known things were strange. And it is difficult because sometimes you do at some point get jaded when you're not only a police officer, but the 911 responders. As you probably know, you've heard numerous times when you have cases, sometimes you hear a 911 caller who's just not moved by the 911 call. And you're like, how could you, not be more responsive? And unfortunately, a lot of times you get callers who are not serious or who make you go out there for no reason. And I'm not excusing that behavior, but sometimes that does happen and it desensitizes people. And same with the cops. They go out and they're like, nothing to see here. It is really unfortunate because you have to understand who the source of the information is, right? If you know that there is a boy who cried wolf who keeps calling and calling and calling, that might require a different response than somebody who's like, I never call the police, but something strange is really happening here. These people are usually not unresponsive. I hear kids, like all of these things that should spark a red flag, I think is problematic that it wasn't attended to.
Yeah, that was one of the things I first thought when we listened to the first 911 call from the dental office owner, manager. This is not the kind of guy that's, making a prank call. You could just
right.
But to your point, these 911 operators, I know it takes a certain personality, a certain, mindset. I don't know if your immediate response is to challenge that person, like, really?
Yeah.
Has he, it just makes it seem like, well, if that's what's happening here and we're showcasing it because of this horrible story, how often is that happening?
Oh, well, I got to tell you, as I was a prosecutor for 10 years, I'm a defense attorney. I can't list how many 911 calls I've heard in my career, probably hundreds at this point. And I will say, the majority of them are like, they're not enormously helpful and they're not, standoffish, like you were saying. But I do know that, like, I remember in certain cases where I was listening and I'm like, there's, a woman crying on the phone and she's like, I was just, raped or something like that. And the 911 call is like, I can't hear you. What's the cross street? Like, you're like, can you just appreciate the sensitivity of this situation? And so I definitely have seen problems with some of those dispatchers.
Yeah, I can imagine. Was that a Bronx 911 caller that you were doing?
What was the accent operator on that? I worked in Brooklyn. I worked in Brooklyn, so families from Brooklyn. I definitely have. I could slip into it sometimes.
Yeah, that was very
the right
good.
moments.
So, as we leave this behind, again, Spencer Tepe, Monique Tepe, the victims in this case, their kids, we believe, are with the brother now. Who has been very helpful. He's actually, shared some family photos, and he's the one who cleared up some of the confusion over that call from April that was a domestic disturbance call. So he's definitely in a very difficult position now and doing the best he can to help his now deceased family members. So, hey, you mentioned you're a defense attorney. One of the key reasons I wanted to have you on and talk today about the Uvalde case, because it is, it's a brutal case, 19 kids killed, 2 teachers, plenty of others wounded, and the person on trial now is Adrian Gonzalez, one of the first cops to arrive on the scene.
Yeah.
Defending this case is a tough one. You got so many, when you look at this case on its face, what immediately sticks out to you as the challenge or challenges?
So first, the biggest challenge on the defense side is the emotional impact of all of this, right? So you have to assume that behind closed doors, there was a massive community push for this prosecution to happen. Now, I have a lot of feelings about that because I've been a prosecutor and I know the pressure that prosecutors have when there is, the pressure from the community. And it's very important for prosecutors to separate that from the law, separate that from what's right and what's wrong. Are we doing this prosecution because we want to blame someone? Ultimately the shooter, he's gone. He had the ultimate, I guess, punishment or end to his life. But is there this feeling, this psychological feeling of wanting more, wanting to hold more people responsible? And not that there's a problem with that necessarily on an emotional level, but on a prosecutorial level, is that the right thing to do? Is there real liability here, criminal liability on the part of the police officers? And you have to think of it on the defense side as a difficult case to win, because yes, you have the argument of like, look, it's a stretch to say that this person was responsible for all of this when this person was not the actual shooter. But you have to understand that the jury is a jury of this person's peers. It is community members. So assuming that this is a community pushed prosecution, you have to assume that the people you're trying to convince are probably on board with the prosecution as members of the community.
Yeah, and as you know, they did the change of venue, but not like they moved it out of Texas. Not like everybody there doesn't already know about it. They're now in Corpus Christi, Natchez County, I believe it is. Walnuts. Check your dictionaries. Check your Spanish English dictionary. And so that helped, perhaps, just if nothing else, broaden the jury pool. But they got a jury in one day, which surprised me quite a bit. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was, they had the motion for mistrial yesterday based on some Brady violations. And it boiled down to whether this particular teacher on the stand, I think I called her Hall yesterday, her last name is Hale, and she was back on today, and we're going to look at just a brief bit of that testimony because it's perfect to illustrate what I think is a bizarre scenario where you have a witness who testifies apparently for the first time about having seen the shooter in a proximity very near the defendant very early in the process. Now, that's important, obviously, because the sooner he had knowledge that something was going on and had the duty as a cop to do something, the more it looks like he's responsible, and by omission is responsible for these 29 counts of child endangering, up to 58 years in jail if that happens. And it is jail, not prison. Interesting little wrinkle there with that particular charge. Anyway, so there was a big, kerfuffle, as they say, because the defense counsel said, hey, wait a minute, we didn't hear any about that. And then they find out that the prosecution was told in December, a month ago, in fact, that she did make that additional piece of information available, not to the grand jury, not to the statement to the cops, which they played in court today while she was on the stand, so that they basically had to impeach her, right?
Yes.
Here's what I think is weird. I want your take on this. The judge denied the motion for a mistrial, but said, I got to do something. And so he's got a number of possible remedies. He said, I'm willing to strike her testimony right now. Okay? What's your gut feeling about doing that versus what actually happened, which we'll get into?
My gut feeling is I think that they did the right thing and said, don't strike the testimony. Let us impeach her with this statement. Why? Because you cannot unring that bell.
That's what that phrase, which we all know, the defense attorney, one of three, Mr. Goss in this case, he kept using that phrase like, we want the chance to unring the bell. I'm thinking, dude, every time you unring the bell, aren't you reinforcing the bell?
Yeah. So there is this like, you know how when you watch a movie, you just have to suspend your reality in order to believe certain things that make no sense?
Sure.
So we have that in court. And what I mean by that is we have this suspension of reality where a judge will say, and we're supposed to all believe, that whatever a jury is instructed by a judge, they will do. Right? So like if they're told, strike that testimony, pretend you never heard it, right? We're all supposed to be like, okay, like that's going to happen. And in reality, we all know that does not happen. Even during jury selection, when a judge says, don't look on social media about this case, sometimes we're like, you know what, don't even say anything, because now that you've mentioned it, they're gonna do it.
It seems like it,
yeah. And judges are basically, no matter where you're from, you hear a judge saying like, nope, We're supposed to trust our juries that they're going to listen because, hey, if we can't trust our juries that they're going to listen, what is the point of having a trial to begin with, right?
Yeah.
Fine. So we all have to just kind of like handshake this and accept it to be true. So here in a situation where the judge is like, oh, I'll just strike her testimony and I'll tell the jury to just ignore it, it's too late. The jury already heard it. And so in a way, it's actually smarter and better to be like, no, we'll have that stay, but we're going to prove that she's lying or that she's mistaken or something by playing the previous statement.
And then it gets really weird because after the fact, well, let's just play part of this. And you know, and the judge basically said, well, then you can go forward. And defense said, okay, well, we're still reserving the right to ask you to strike the testimony, but we're going to go forward, which is interesting. And you know, I don't think at this point the jury has a clue what's important or not important about her testimony.
That's
you know, it's
very true.
And so when it comes to closing, one thing we do know is that the prosecution will not be able to say that Ms. Hale told you that this shooter was in this particular area where the defendant was. That ain't coming in when the testimony is ultimately stricken. But in terms of what they think is happening at this moment or why that would be important, you know, they have no idea. So let me grow this thing so it's a little better here. And again, this is Mr. Goss, defense counsel, and this is the point this morning at which Ms. Hale is back on the stand. And as those who have been watching any of this trial know, we're getting this shot. We're getting the headless witness. Although twice now witnesses have been shown inadvertently, and the cameraman or woman, they're getting better. But there was a sneak peek of one of the teachers again today. All the teachers basically are opting not to be seen on camera. So, okay, so let's see how this plays out.
An hour later, yes, after you spoke to the ranger, you came in and testified to a grand jury.
An hour later?
No, later,
Oh,
after.
sorry.
Because it wasn't an hour later.
Yeah.
It was years later.
Yes.
Years later, you sat down and testified to a grand jury. And in your grand jury testimony, you did say, I don't know if you've seen it, that you were there, but you did say that you saw clouds of dust. You didn't say it to the ranger, but you said it to the grand jury. Did you know that?
Yes.
And that was a secondary issue, although more minor, but that she saw some puff of dust or something indicating a projectile had hit somewhere near here, but still not identifying the shooter.
You never said to the grand jury that you saw anybody dressed in black with long hair carrying a long gun. Did you know that you also did not say that to the grand jury years later when you were interviewed?
Yes, I just heard him say it up there or somewhere. Maybe we talked on the phone, but yes.
Sure. So, and then, I guess in December of 2024, so, I'm sorry, 2025, we're in 2026 now. In December, which probably close to a month ago, came in and you talked to the prosecutor. And there, for the first time, if you understand it, you gave them a description
Yes, from what I can recall.
of a man in black on the south. Well, did you tell him he was on the south side of the building?
Ding,
You didn't ask.
ding, ding,
And I
ding.
didn't say because I'm not very great with directions.
So, right. And I'll tell you what, I'm not either. Judge Mayer, first witness. Yes.
Careful, cameraman.
Ooh.
I'm not either. But I think that's why they have these.
That's the court reporter, in the purple.
This is the south, and I'm not asking you to be great. West, south. Did they, in their interview with you, did they ask you to point to a part of the map where you saw this person?
Not that I remember.
Okay, and you said that they didn't ask at all.
Not that I remember. So I would have answered it or asked to show. I mean, they might have, I don't know, but I don't remember telling them where.
But you understand now that would have been in December, that would have been the first time that anybody anybody involved in the case would have heard you say that you described somebody that looked like the shooter.
Yes, but from what I have in my memory, I've said it. I said it during the grand jury. I thought that I did.
Right. It turns out that you did not. But I think ultimately what I want to be clear on is when you spoke, are you saying that when you spoke to these people and you said for the first time that you saw the shooter, that not one person in that room asked you where he was?
From what I recall, I don't remember being asked where or to show. I don't remember.
All right, then. So he basically establishes, in fact, she learned, or they learned only when she was on the stand that a month earlier she had mentioned it to the prosecution. Prosecution did not share that information. And I don't know if you remember this little tidbit, but I've carved this out because I know I'm going to use it plenty of times.
You know, you're getting very nitpicky.
You're getting very nitpicky. That's what defense attorney Goss was asking when the prosecution learned the information that they did not share. Well, Sarena, it's nitpicky. You know. I mean,
Whenever
you don't
you're
like
prosecutor-
nitpicky, don't be an attorney. Because
Yeah.
that's kind of your job.
What we
is nitpicky.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, you have to be nitpicky in a situation like this. In most legal situations, you do, because the bottom line is that information a defense attorney is entitled to know. Any previous statements that are made that contradict other statements that were made by a witness is Brady material. It is something that could tend to lead to a more favorable outcome for the client, for the defendant. And in those scenarios, you are owed and entitled that information. And if the prosecution, it isn't nitpicky, because if the prosecution found out today or yesterday on the stand, then they were not in possession of that information previously to the extent that they could have turned that over. However, if even just a month ago, they were informed of that or in possession of that information, they do have, they are forced to turn that information over. And the defense needs to know that. They need to know with the credibility of the person on the stand. Keep in mind, as you know, with criminal cases, there's no depositions. So it's not like you have a ton of information about a person before they take the stand in a criminal case like you do in a civil.
Yeah. And I felt sorry for the teacher because, she's in the middle of this thing. She's just trying to do the best she can, right?
Yeah.
And clearly Ms. Mitchell, the prosecutor, was flummoxed, and the court made a ruling, a decision that this was not intentional. And I wonder what would have happened if this were much further into the trial. This was the third witness on day one when this happened. And so the judge finds that it was negligent at best or at worst. And then was asked to exclude her testimony, which he then did. And I'm still, if I'm the defense attorney, now that I've reinforced with this jury the location of the shooter, the location of the shooter, the location of the shooter, and my guy is nearby, and now they're going to impute to him the knowledge that the shooter was nearby. I mean, just telling them to forget that and making sure the prosecution doesn't point it out in closings, still, man, that's a big matzo ball hanging out there that I don't know if I would have been willing to do.
I'm with you on that. I totally agree. I think I'd rather paint her as somebody who was traumatized and didn't really remember exactly what happened. And, for the last few years has now filled in those blanks with other information that she could have learned later, but was not actually true on the day of the event. We're not painting her out to be a liar, but just somebody who understandably doesn't exactly remember everything perfectly today. At least not as well as she did on the same day of the incident.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, so stressful that who knows what she was thinking, seeing, remembering. So anyway, and the judge did a nice thing. I think he handled this properly. He has her wait outside while he makes the ruling. Obviously, this is all in front of the jury, but then they're excused while this decision is made. Then he calls her back in to basically make her feel better, saying, you're going to learn at some point that the jury's been told to disregard your testimony. It's kind of it's like, what?
Sorry.
That's a slap in the face, you know?
Yeah.
And so he wanted her to be aware that that's nothing personal. You did a great job and stressful circumstance, but for various reasons, they're not going to be considering your testimony. So
I mean, what a bummer.
Yeah, I'm sure she's a little bit mad
stressed.
and a little bit, confused, and hopefully it will be explained better to her as the case unfolds. That and she's like, I went through all of this for nothing.
I know, it's horrible, and I guess they probably figured she'd read about it in the news.
Yes, no doubt,
and be like,
not
wait,
from
what?
the jury, of course. The jury won't be talking about.
No, they're not gonna. They're not gonna
Yeah.
Google it.
It'll be in the news. Yeah.
By the way, speaking of like, you triggered this thought in my head about, what goes on in somebody's minds when they're in such a traumatizing situation. And, there's this theory that had been out there for a very long time about what they used to call flashbulb memories. And that relates to, where were you when Kennedy was shot? Or what were you doing during when the towers were hit, right? And so the going thought process in the world of psychology was that a memory that's so traumatizing like that, so out of the ordinary, so unexpected, so horrifying, that your brain remembers it perfectly because it's like a flashbulb. It's like you took a picture of it. And there have been subsequent studies, for many, many studies on this topic after that. And, they found out that that's absolutely not true. That like, even though you are extremely traumatized and you're going to remember stuff about that, it doesn't negate the memory deficiencies that people have generally, just so traumatizing.
So they might remember it happening.
Yeah.
Right. Like 9/11, but any other details might be just as murky as they are for less memorable stuff.
Right. And in fact, you might be so convinced that because it was so traumatizing, you remember it better, that you actually don't, adhere to what actually happened. And instead you're overly confident, but not rightfully confident. And so it's interesting, people really do, and understandably so, people think that way. And I think witnesses think that way. Like when she took the stand, all of these people, when they take the stand, they're like, this is a day I'll never forget. I'm sure is something that they were thinking, like, I could never forget. But the truth of the matter is, and they did studies on this because I was actually a student at NYU during 9/11, a psych major. And I was asked to write down everything that I recalled during that time. And they did this study where they asked people 10 years later, I don't know, they didn't call me, but they asked other people 10 years later, and they compared it to the original writing, and it was off. It was not. It was just as susceptible to memory loss and manipulation and whatever than any other memory.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. So that the traumatic event itself may not necessarily enhance the details. So that explains my first marriage. Anyway, and I have no idea what that means. Anyway, so
we can talk about that later.
tonight, because I wasn't able to really. I mean, they pulled the plug on today just before we went on the air because they're an hour behind us. So I never have the luxury of kind of scanning through and picking stuff. So tonight seems to be a perfect opportunity to play True Crime Roulette, where we will just go through. We'll just scan, and as you see it unfold, you will say stop.
Okay.
And now what they did, I will tell the prosecution, they did a great job at mixing things up because the sympathy and the stories being told from the teacher's perspective are so traumatic that it's a good idea to mix it up, right? So they would sprinkle a cop in and then have another teacher, and then boom, sprinkle a cop in. They had a couple of cops today, crime scene investigator types. They didn't finish the last witness on the stand, who was, again, one of the CSI type guys. He'll be back tomorrow. But I think it was helpful to break up the really hard to listen to testimony. Some of these teachers, to me, were amazing to be as calm as they could be. Let me ask you this question before we get into this. 911 calls, which we've chatted about a little bit. I'm looking at it in the context of this case, this defendant. At a certain point, I think the 911 calls become cumulative and prejudicial because we don't need to, unless they say things like, I see Mr. Gonzalez, the defendant. I see the shooter in very spotted, but most of the calls are chaos.
Yeah.
Very emotional, but not very helpful in terms of putting people in a certain position at a certain time. Now, I'm not privy to all of the motions in limine ahead of time, but I would think there was some discussion about, we don't have to have every single 911 call here. That's prejudicial.
Absolutely. Yeah, there should have been a motion in limine or a discussion beforehand to limit the number of 911 calls, because that's what we would call, as defense attorneys, inflammatory. It's inflammatory. And unless, basically a judge in that scenario has to balance the probative value, how relevant it is to the charges against the prejudicial value. And the probative value has to far outweigh the prejudicial value. And exactly like you said, we know 911 was called. We know there was a shooting. Once you have at least one or two of those calls played, that's been established. The only purpose of it at that point really is to give the narrative. It's not going to give any sort of relevant evidence against this particular defendant and his actions. So I totally agree with you. The only thing that it's doing is inflaming the jury if they continue to play many of those calls.
I think they've done 3 so far. The first one was by far the most traumatic and made the most sense. It was from the pastor at the church across the street who was there when it all began. So that's a good timeline starter and kind of puts perspective on where people were. But the ones since then are just the trauma from within the school. And that was my first thought was, I hope they were objected to. And they've preserved that for appeal, because I think you may have something there, especially if they continue to do that. Okay, so let's open up the wheel here. And I'm not. This may sound like I'm being disrespectful, but I'm just trying to be honest that I can't pinpoint exactly where we need to go.
Yeah.
So we're gonna find a spot here. Okay. So this is our teacher from this morning.
Okay. And I just have to say stop when I want you to stop.
Just say stop.
Okay. Stop.
Okay.
No whammies, no whammies.
This no whammy.
Look, he's got his hand up. He's ready to hit the no whammies.
Nice game show reference. Okay, let's see what they're arguing about.
He was wearing. That gave us significant pause. But lo and behold, yesterday we're able to find out they did actually have the information
This is just before the judge rules on striking her testimony.
about the shots being fired up and behind her. The evidence has been developed today that they did actually have the evidence that she said that the shots, I agree, not the gunman, but the shots came from the building and then indicated. So they do have information that she was aware of where the shots were coming from. That does leave, though, Your Honor, still that disturbing point about the clothing not being turned over. We agree that is improper. We should have done it because it was new information. Didn't seem all that significant since we had photographs of the shooter in black, but nonetheless, we believe, number one, it has all been cured through cross-examination. He's pointed out that she didn't say it originally. The jury is aware of the truthful nature of her conduct all the way, and they weren't ready and prepared to do that. It has not caught them off guard as of now because of the court granting a continuance. Second of all, Your Honor, we believe that if the court does believe some kind of measure is appropriate, we ask the court not to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and that is the only surprise that they're addressing is the black hair and the gun, and it would be appropriate if the court feels like that caught them off guard and has affected their defense to instruct the jury not to consider that portion of the testimony.
May I respond to that? Because I feel like I'm getting gaslit with this clothing thing. That is not the issue about black clothes. It is the fact that she said that she saw a man who matched the description of the shooter with a gun. And that is
And a gun.
That's the key issue.
Yeah, whatever.
It's not his clothing or the fact that we know that he was wearing black. And ultimately, I think what the defense, what the prosecution doesn't know about the defense strategy, the court does know. There's things that we could have done and investigations we could have made.
Mr. Goss, I've heard enough.
Yeah.
Again,
You've won.
Yeah.
Mr. Turner, you don't have the benefit of the ex parte brief that Mr. Goss filed, and I think you'll probably gleaned issues from the arguments, but there's no doubt that this was critical to the strategy. And I don't think I have any choice, having denied the mistrial, other than to craft a remedy that will protect the due process rights and hopefully avoid any appellate review that would result in this case being reversed. So I am reluctantly going to instruct the jury to disregard her testimony in its entirety when they come back out.
Okay. And as you've suggested, good luck with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Just
and
unring that now,
again,
baby.
yeah. And then hopefully the defense will forget about it and not somehow bring it back from the dead. Okay, here we go. We're moving on.
I like the little
don't do
eagle.
it when
Yeah.
they don't have a fan, they don't clock. They do show the clock occasionally, but they like the eagle. So,
Okay.
okay.
The eagle's cool. Stop.
Okay, this is another
A lot of
teacher.
hand talking.
It's another which
You
I
can
do
tell it's a
like.
teacher.
Because
Yes.
yeah, that's right. Sometimes when they allow to protect their privacy, they won't let you show anything.
Yeah.
Well, at least now you get some body movement, some gesticulation, something.
Yeah.
So let's see what she recalls.
Because the gate isn't locked. So I'm standing there waiting for him to come.
Okay, you were concerned about leaving that area with an unlocked gate.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And after that, what did you hear?
I'm standing there waiting for him, and I'm facing east because he's coming. He's going to come from that direction. I'm standing there, and I hear a loud vehicle from behind me, which is the west side. I turn around and I look and I see a vehicle going real fast. And I see him crash into the area of the ditch. There was like a poles there, and the truck crashed. As it hit it, it kind of went up and then it went into the ditch.
Okay, now I want you to go back to that map and point to the area on the map where you're saying you saw this car hit the ditch.
Here's an interesting part of just local knowledge. Let me ask you what you know about this, because it's brand new to me. Do you know what a bailout is? And I don't mean like a government bailout.
Is that like when they put those yellow barrels to prevent more damage when you crash?
What it is, and it's very
like no.
literal. That would be a no. That's a no. That's a no. Let me mark that down as a no.
Yeah, is it like a bale of hay? Like what is it?
No.
Okay.
It is because it happens so often there, and they are near the border with Mexico, right? This is about 80 miles west of San Antonio. There is apparently a quite often cars that are zooming through the area, evading authorities, perhaps with illegal occupants, and they will bail out of the vehicle.
Oh,
yeah. They will bail out of the vehicle.
Okay.
And they have, like other schools might have fire drills, they have these bailout kind of notices.
Wow.
And
that's
so the
really
teachers,
okay.
I mean, I was like, what?
You don't really see that in New York.
They kept thinking, oh, it's just another bailout. I think, was this some sort of weird political statement? What does that mean? And
that's
so
helpful.
Each of these teachers has mentioned how the sound of the car hitting, and she's describing the shooter's truck hitting the barricade at the ditch, and then he gets out of the vehicle and hops over, and he's now on the school property.
Okay.
But they all describe the same, well, maybe it's just another bailout. All the kids were even reacting that way. Probably,
maybe that's why the shooter did it.
Miss Hale, it's probably just a bailout.
Right.
They were all so used to it happening.
Wow.
Okay, I'm going to move ahead here. She's going to the chart.
And stop.
And she also had a 911 call.
Okay.
Which
she seems very nervous.
She's visibly upset.
Yeah.
Now, Ms. Modine, we see and hear you trying to relay information at the same time that you're trying to get the children into the classroom.
Yeah, I'm going to back up. I'm going to audibilize her. I'm going to back up just a touch.
Yeah.
See if we can, get a feel for that 911 call.
There's a shooter on campus. I couldn't do it. Food, snacks
I don't know.
on his way. So I pushed the cart out of the door as I'm going out. I go out and I put the rock on the door and I go out to the gate.
Okay, let me stop you right there. Approximately what time did Mr. Gonzalez contact you or text you?
It was probably about 11:20.
Okay.
Now that's critical. That's
And
important stuff.
You
Mhm.
put the rock in the door for what reason?
So I wouldn't have to lock it and unlock it, lock it and unlock it, because it's always supposed to be locked.
And you thought it was locked that day? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So when you took the card out you were going to meet Mr. Gonzalez there, did you have to unlock that far west gate, that exterior gate?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what was your experience with that gate?
I have employees that would always unlock it when we were releasing the students. But that day I was by myself, so I went and it has a lock. So I went and I unlocked it, and it's always hard because there's part of that like a pole that goes into the cement, and you have to kind of jimmy it, and then it'll come up, and that unlocks it completely. 2 other times that I had tried that, I couldn't do it. So that day I unlocked the lock, and then I said, I hope I can pull it up. So I jimmied it a little bit, and I pulled it up, and I said, I did it. So it was unlocked, and so I pushed the cart against the gate, and I said, I can't leave this spot because the gate is unlocked. So I'm standing there waiting for him to come.
Okay, you were concerned about leaving that area with an unlocked gate.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's talk about the issue of all the doors and locks that were and weren't in place or operating properly, and the way they seem to have kind of their way around them. This,
Right.
I think, give me your take on this. I think this is going to be important because what they're trying to suggest is, regardless of what Mr. Gonzalez did or did not do, those doors should have been locked. That shooter should never have been able to get into the school proper. A point
Yes.
you make?
I think that is a point that I would make. Absolutely. Because look, first of all, we also have to keep in mind, I don't know, I haven't been following this closely if there's already been any sort of lawsuits, but you have to keep in mind that there's going to be potential massive lawsuits here against the school and anybody else who could potentially have been negligent in this scenario. And so this kind of testimony, of course, is super relevant to the criminal case, but also to a potential civil case down the road. But it is definitely a point that I would make. Yes.
Yeah, and they've gone into some detail about how some of the teachers had magnets that they would put on the doors so that they never had to use their keys. They would just constantly be, and you think about this in the context of timing. I mean, when we had my youngest was in grade school, which was 15 years ago. Even then, you go to get to the front door of the school, it's locked. There's a camera. There's an intercom. I mean,
yes.
And this was only 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a money thing, if it's a philosophy thing, but I was
It is
surprised that
weird.
it was so lax.
I agree with that completely. In fact, as much as it's frustrating for us as parents when we're like out in the field watching our kids play ball and we just need a bathroom break inside the school, and you're like, open the door, like ringing the bell, and nobody's there. It's the weekend. At the same time, you're like relieved because this is how it should be. The safety is parameter. Like that's the prime factor here. It is surprising to me, especially knowing how many disasters, school shootings, unfortunately occur in America, that the locking policies and all of the safety policies were not up to speed.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's the sign of the times. And this was the biggest school shooting in Texas history 3 years ago. So I must have missed the 911 call. It could be they were setting it up.
Right.
But let me we'll move along here anyway. Let me pick this up again. I keep shutting myself out, and then I have to do that. Can I get the tech guys in here, please? The tech department. Okay, continuing.
Okay. Pause. I picked a bad one.
I don't know how you did that.
That was bad. Complete silence.
Okay. Oh, we have a new witness.
Oh, okay.
Oh, this is
this is good.
Getting ready for work.
And that was about 11:30 or so?
I don't remember.
Okay. Did something catch your attention out of the ordinary, though?
Yes, sir.
Would you tell the jury what that was?
At first I thought it was construction, but kept going on for a while, so just thought it might be gunshots.
So at first it sounded construction. Can
Maybe
you describe that a little more for me so we kind of understand the sound?
A nail gun, someone banging on their house. I don't really remember.
Like a nail gun?
Mhm.
Okay, so you attached it to construction. Are you in the construction business?
No, sir.
Okay. And after you heard that for a while, then you changed your mind?
Yes, sir.
And tell us what did you change your mind to?
I thought maybe that's a firearm.
Okay. Where were you when you heard these things?
In the restroom, getting ready for work.
Inside your
Inside
your
my
home?
house. Yes, sir.
And you could still hear those sounds?
Yes, sir.
It sounded like a nail gun and then like a gunshot. So what did you do?
I went to my window.
And where is your window?
I don't really know how.
Is it on the first floor, second floor?
Second.
Huh?
Second floor?
On the second floor?
Yes, sir.
And what did you do from the second floor?
Looked out the window.
Okay. Did you do anything other than look out the window?
Not right away, no.
Okay. Well, tell us what you saw as you looked out the window.
At first, nothing really. And then I looked out again and I saw someone about to go into the school.
Someone what?
About to go into the school.
Okay. Could you describe what he looked like?
I don't remember.
Okay. Other than looking out the window, did you do anything else?
I took a video
And how did you take the video?
on my phone.
Okay. And is it a relatively short video?
I believe so. I don't really remember.
Okay.
Judge, we don't object to the video.
Okay. Thank you. At this time, then, Your Honor, we'd offer Stacy's Exhibit 18.
Let's publish that.
And I'm going to ask not to play it at this time, but to finish my direct and pass the witness.
I would
Did you eventually turn
question that
the
process.
video over to law enforcement?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Pass the witness.
I mean, the jury wants to see it.
Nico LaHood.
Yeah, you whet the appetite.
Children, one of the lawyers who represents him. Have you testified before?
No, sir.
Okay.
Let me make a couple of thoughts on the defense team, which is kind of like a United Nations. They've got Mr. Goss, who is seems more local kind of guy, and then you have Mr. LaHood, who is we talked about him yesterday. Used to be the DA. He was also a drug dealer when he was 22, and then he became the DA at 42.
Fascinating.
And he's got a Lebanese background, but he's cross-examining here, so we'll hear a little bit from him. He has like a Hispanic accent, and then the third guy has a British accent, and I apologize, I can't remember his name, but it's quite the mix. So anyway, let's listen to a little bit of Mr. LaHood's cross.
I'm going to ask you questions. I'm not going to go at you, but I do want your full name for the record. What's your first name?
Jose.
Jose Gil. And Gil, is it G-I-L or H-I-L-L?
Hill.
Okay, because Gil can be G-I-L, right? You should spell it a different way. So you look out the window, and from your window, you can see the parking lot of Robb Elementary, or a corner of it. No? Well, you can see the west side entrance, maybe?
Yes.
Is that fair to say? Okay, and the west side entrance from your window, what's behind your view from the window and behind the west side entrance?
It's just the empty field next to the alley.
Is there something between the empty field and the alley and then the west side entrance?
A ditch?
Okay. There's not a parking lot. Is there, because let me ask you in general, is there a parking lot on the west side, outside the west side?
Yeah, I guess so. It was just gravel, but yeah, I guess.
Was it paved back then?
I don't remember.
Okay. But did you watch the person that entered the west side entrance for a while, or was it just more kind of
It was
momentarily?
just quick, momentarily.
Why did you get a video? Why did you start your camera?
Because I can't see very well, so I was like, wait, is someone actually going in there? Is someone actually holding a firearm? That's pretty much it.
and I know you don't want to watch the video, and I respect that, but what will the jury eventually see from that window, from your recollection, from your video?
Just like 2 seconds of him going to the school.
Okay, that I respect that. You know, apparently he made them aware that he rather not see the video, so they're going to hold it. I'm going to zoom ahead here.
You know what though? The best thing a defense attorney could ever hear a witness say on the stand, I can't see very well.
Yes.
When he said it, I was like,
eyewitness testimony.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. More of that, please. Yes.
Yes. Yeah,
he seems like a very credible witness, by the way. Like,
of course,
completely does not want to be there saying everything, you know, it sounds very truthfully.
Yes, but it doesn't make his eyesight any better.
No.
No. That's a very good point. Let's see if they're gonna so they get rid of him and they don't go to the video because this is a cop. So we'll go zooming through the cop. He has to tell everybody how great he is, how long he's been doing it.
Yeah.
You know how that works. Okay, I'll leave it to you now.
Okay. Oh, let's pause here. We have pictures.
Okay. There we go. There's a casing.
And just in general terms, the casing that we're looking at, is that consistent with the other casings that you picked up to this point?
And this is prosecution direct.
And how are those casings all inconsistent with a handgun round?
They're longer and more narrow.
So it's obvious to see from an investigator.
Yes.
State's Exhibit 101. Could you tell us what that exhibit is?
That's another view. That's the west side. Can I get up one?
Yes, please do.
This is still the west side of the building. And this is the walkway going up to the parking lot.
And there are flags and tents, markers there for evidence. Is that correct?
Yes.
Would you point those out?
See one here. You see one there. See one there. One here.
And in addition to that, before you sit down, do you see that a black car parked in the same place we saw earlier?
This one right here.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't see a car in that picture.
Yeah, it's killing me that they didn't say for the record. Yeah.
Would you describe
where he was pointing?
That's evidence item number 6. There's a flag marking where it's at, and it's about to be picked up because that's when it got its number.
And just to be clear, that's on the southwest side of the 4th grade wing.
Yes.
State's Exhibit 103.
This is a close-up shot of it. The casing, you can see a casing.
And I think we can close up a little closer, maybe. Could you point out then where that casing is?
Could you imagine trying to find those casings?
Oh,
it's tough.
And, let me just interject here. Of all these, so I don't have to keep asking, are all of these casings that you picked up then on the south and the west side, were they all the same type of casing?
The casings, yes.
Now, there were unfired cartridges, is that correct?
There was 2, I believe.
And they were not the same as these fired casings, is that correct?
That's correct.
But all of the fired casings were, in general terms, the same
yes.
casings. Thank you. And we just looked at marker number 6, and so I'm going to keep up with that numbering system. Would you tell us what Exhibit 105 is?
It's a black glove.
Okay. And did you know the significance of that at the time?
No, it just stood out because it was in the parking lot by itself like that. So, we don't know what the importance of it is, but it stood out. So we marked it and we collected it.
And it's not your job to determine if it belonged to the gunman or a police officer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so now remember, based on this defendant, this is all foundational information about the shooter. But the more they talk about this south side, southwest side, and the more they can put this activity on the same location generally as Adrian Gonzalez, the cop, the better they can connect him to any, endangering of the children charge that they've got against him.
That's right.
Do you like that process? Do you think that's...
Yeah, I think that's what they're doing and what they have to do. Look, nobody is going to get out here and say that, unlike, most endangering the welfare of a child cases are, a lot of them are neglect, but a lot of them are physical abuse. Nobody's going to get out here and say that this officer did actively something wrong. He negligently did not do his job. And so to show that, they're going to show all of this activity that should have sparked him to do his job.
And what the defense is going to do, at least from their opening statement, is they have a litany of things that he did do, even though ultimately the charge suggests he didn't do enough, he didn't do the right things, that he didn't engage, all of that. And they're going to have, I think I read 60 witnesses, prosecution said. I think they're on number 7 or 8 for this particular, for this guy. And, there's going to be a lot of photos, but that has been limited. We know that, like the autopsy photos and things are going to, I think they're being kept out entirely, which is
I
appropriate.
wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
I mean, what point would they serve as it relates to any criminal activity by this defendant?
Right. Only to inflame the jury. Look, those kinds of pictures and medical procedures, that would be important to some extent if you were charging the perpetrator of the murder.
Right,
to show, that death actually occurred and all of the other injuries that were happening for every single count. But the counts here have nothing to do with, but just ancillarily have to do with murder. It's not about that for this defendant. So putting in those kinds of pictures are really prejudicial.
I would suggest that child endangering is not very often a crime of omission, which is what it is today for this case. It's usually much more straightforward, right?
It is. Yeah. The only time, in my practice that I saw it be an omission is oftentimes in family cases. If the mother or father gets charged with not feeding or giving the proper nutrition.
Or leaving a kid in a hot car or.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So it does happen, but it's less popular, I would say, as a charge when there's negligence. It's also harder to prove, right? You have A plus B equals C when you have an active harm done. A hit B, therefore B suffered C injuries, and that's it.
I mean, and that that's a huge causation issue, which this jury is going to have to understand. But for his failure to do whatever they suggest he should have done, would these children have died or been injured?
That's right.
That's a heavy lift.
It is a heavy lift. It really is, because, on the one hand, again, we started this program by saying that, like, people, they're coming in with their lit torches. They want somebody to suffer for all of this pain.
Yeah, the shooter's gone.
Yeah.
Who else is at fault?
They want to see it. They want to see it. Humans are like that. We're the same even today as we were back when we did even worse things to perpetrators or alleged perpetrators. We still want to see accountability, I guess.
Sure. And you've got that courtroom is full of parents that have lost children or had children that were injured. And it is very much human nature, but that doesn't change the legal burden.
That's right. It is a leap. And these kinds of charges, I mean, we talk about neglect as endangering the welfare of a child. Sure, we have seen those cases, but how often have we seen these cases with respect to police neglect?
And I think of
happens.
The Ethan Crumley case, the Michigan, where both parents were ultimately held for involuntary manslaughter. They were both found guilty and I think sentenced up to 15 years. But I think because of the family relationship, they were able to justify a much higher charge. Here, child endangering is far less. I mean, we're talking 2-year max. 2-year max, but times 29. Now, it's possible the jury could find him guilty, and this defendant has asked the court to sentence. In Texas, apparently the jury, you can choose the jury. I would never have the jury, in a case this emotional, pick a number.
I agree with that. That's interesting that you could ask the judge. The jury or the judge.
So this judge could say, okay, guilty on 29, and he could make it a year concurrent.
Sure. Yeah, he could.
Yeah. So interesting. Okay, let's do one more before I kick you loose. Let me see if I can get to a new witness. Hey, how about this? Want to see the clock?
Oh, we can watch the clock.
There's the clock. Boy, time flies when you're here, Sarena.
Yeah, listen.
Yeah, look at that. Whee! Okay.
Wow, that's a long break.
It's a long break. Okay. Oh, he's still back.
Going.
I want to get past him. Nothing personal, dude.
No. I do like the tie color. That's an
Yeah,
interesting
that's
choice.
nice. That's
Yeah.
nice. I know they finished with him, so bear with me
Okay.
here as
Yeah, it might be just towards the very end.
I'm kind of bending the rules of the true crime roulette.
I'm just saying
okay.
stop really slowly.
Yeah, okay. Here's another teacher. I'll let you say stop at some point here.
Okay. Stop.
Okay.
Okay. Now, Ms. Deming, you said you're still teaching.
Yes,
What
ma'am.
grade, you said for the 2021, 2022, you taught fourth grade.
Yes, ma'am.
For the 2022, 2023 school year, what grade did you teach?
I moved campuses. I wanted to stay with the students. I wanted to move directly to fifth grade, but they didn't have a position. So I moved to sixth grade, but I got to be on the campus with my students.
And that was intentional?
Yes, ma'am.
And for the 2023, 2024 school year, what grade did you teach?
I taught fifth grade.
And again, that was?
I got to be with the students. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So obviously the school closed down and everybody moved, and she wanted to stay with those kids, but basically got as close as she could by being on the campus, even though it was a different grade. And that's Ms. Mitchell that's doing the questioning now for the prosecution here.
Going back to your students in that classroom on May 24th of 2022, what is your opinion of those students that were there with you?
They are the
Interesting question.
strongest,
Yeah, I thought so
bravest
too.
people on this earth, on this whole earth.
And why is that?
They were just so brave. They did everything perfect that day. And I just am so thankful I got to be a tiny part of their life.
Pass the witness.
Okay. I don't know if I like their phrase "pass the witness." It seems so dismissive. It's just like,
It does.
like, how about just no further questions, Your Honor?
Yeah, that's
Anyway,
weird.
you had the same reaction I did to that question.
Yeah.
Totally objectionable,
I
totally
agree.
irrelevant.
Yep.
But if you're the defense sitting there, you look like an asshole.
That's right.
If you object to that question.
Rookie mistake to object to a question like that,
Gotta
right? It's
bait
like
them.
right,
See
brand
if
new. Yeah, it's like any brand new attorney's like, oh, I know that goes against the rules. That's an objection. It's like, no, there's more to good trial work than that. You have to be strategic. You cannot be the one objecting to these kinds of questions with this wonderful witness.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I thought about earlier when we were talking about those challenges is even when you have the best line of questioning and know where you want to go, man, talk about kid gloves. These are the kind of folks that, and I think Mr. LaHood, more than some of the others, he almost panders to them. It gets very close.
Yeah.
It always reminds me of the very first trial I had, and I was second chairing to one of the partners, and he's like, object. And I'm like, I'm thinking, in my head, I'm going through options, and he says, irrelevant, immaterial, lacks foundation. And so I object to all those three. Objection, Your Honor. Immaterial, irrelevant, lacks foundation. And the judge says, oh, so a Perry Mason objection? I'm like, thanks, dude. Thanks for making me look like a
why
goober.
didn't you stand up? Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for that tip. Okay, let's hear some of the cross here from Mr. LaHood. I think it's Mr. LaHood handled.
Okay.
Please. Ms. Deming, is pronounced Deming?
Yes, sir.
Could you please spell it?
DEMING.
Thank you. And the only reason I ask you that is because you probably know there's been a lot of reports generated and written about this.
This might be a Voss or Goss.
Consistently spelled your name as Daring in the
Yes.
reports. Is that common, or is that a maiden name?
I am that or Deming with 2 M's. So yeah, it's pretty common.
Sure, because I guess one M may look like 2 R's.
Yeah.
Well, my name's Jason Goss, and I represent Adrian. And a lot. Have you ever testified before?
Not like this. No, sir.
Sure. And a lot of people may expect that when it comes over here that we're going to be mean to you or disrespectful. And I just want you to know we're not.
There it is.
I mean, honestly, what you did with those kids, I admire it. And
Is there a question?
Nope.
you said
Just
you were lucky.
massaging the jury.
I think
Yeah.
that, they were lucky to have you, right? Because, and I want to start with that training. The training that you're talking about, that's a training that's given to teachers and given to students to say, look, if something like this ever happens, you get in a room, you turn off all the lights, you be quiet, try to block the door like you were, as best that you could. And really try to make it seem like nobody's in the room, right?
Yes, sir.
And in fact, that's kind of what you were saying too. You were like, at the time that you think multiple people are coming in, you're saying, please, just hopefully they think nobody's here, right?
Yes, sir.
And those trainings, and it's important. You know, I think the reason that they have that is because it's been shown that it can save lives, because potential shooters or people wishing to do you and the children harm will pass you up, right? And so one of the things you said, because I mean, you can't even imagine how hard it would have been for your kids to stay that quiet for that long with that going on, right? But they did.
Yes,
This is the opposite of a surgical cross-examination.
Yeah, the leeway here is crazy.
As far as that training though, I think the prosecutor asked you who gave the training, and you said you thought it was like administration or the school. Were these civilians or were these people in like police officers that gave the training?
There, I honestly, I don't remember specifically.
Okay. Do you ever remember, because I'm sure you've had a few of them, do you ever remember just in any of these kind of trainings, police officers being present at the trainings, or is it typically like school administrators or principals or vice principals or other people who come in as, you know, I guess?
Sometimes campus police might be there, but I want to say normally it's just our administration.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think as we leave that behind, that's going to come back to haunt the prosecution, because they're going to paint this picture that even when these folks are trained how to handle these circumstances, it's just rote. You know, some administrator comes in and hear the so that on that day, had they done things differently, had they been prepared more appropriately by law enforcement, you know, the end result isn't the end result. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Is that, you think, what they're fishing for here?
I do think so. And I also, I'm going to reserve the right to say later, once we see more, that this is what might be happening also. And maybe they're testing the waters here. To have these teachers basically say that certain things were supposed to have been done by them and the school as well that weren't done. This gives potentially the defense the ability to say, why is my guy here and nobody else? The teachers effed up, the school effed up, the locks weren't working, all these other, and yet my guy is the scapegoat. And we love these teachers. Look how wonderful they are. And just like they're wonderful, my guy is wonderful too. Like, that's where I would probably start looking as well.
He's not the monster. And they have, you know, another cop who was actually the chief, Arredondo, I think his last name is. His trial is coming up. He certainly seems to me to be in a better targeted role if I'm coming after somebody.
Yeah.
But not Gonzalez, who, you know, was there responding to a car crash. That's why they sent him there. And the next thing you know, this thing unfolds in front of him. I just think Arredondo would have been a better first case target.
Yeah. Usually you do go with the stronger case first.
I mean, just based on the role and his department of 6 officers.
Yeah.
He was in charge of the whole department.
Yeah.
And there were 370 law enforcement types there that day overall. So yeah, I just think, unless I start hearing more that really puts Gonzalez in the crosshairs, figuratively, I think maybe they kind of got aggressive here against the wrong guy.
Yeah. I wonder how it's going to unfold. Maybe we'll be proven wrong.
Yeah, that's true. There may be
very interesting case, though. Like,
it really is. I mean, it's horrific. The underlying crimes, horrible. It's unfortunate that this lesson has to come through this kind of case, but it is a very important legal analysis that I'm glad I had you here to help me kind of wobble through.
Thanks, waddle through. Please, you carried. You carried it.
All righty then. Hey, what's going on? Anything new and exciting coming up for you? Anything you can share?
You know, you caught me in a very busy week. I was on trial yesterday.
Oh, what was the trial? Can you say?
The trial, yes, it was actually, I was defending a correction officer at Rikers. Yes.
Yeah, I know. We talked last time about your experience at Rikers. So that's still, you still do some of that, even though you're not in the system there.
That's right, because they have union representation when they're being disciplined, but sometimes they decide that they're not happy with their union representation and they could retain an attorney. So they retain me. Yeah.
And so was this a jury trial or bench trial?
No, this is actually an administrative trial because it's an internal disciplinary case. And I'm defending him from disciplinary charges at work. They were seeking his termination. And my argument is that he should not be terminated.
Gotcha.
And that's what we did. We're waiting for the result. In those types of cases, unlike in criminal cases, once you give your closing argument, the judge takes his or her time to write a report and recommendation. So we're waiting on that, and we'll probably get that within the next month or two.
And I'm sure these days they just send you an email, right? It's just, it's
yes,
it's
that's
not
exactly
like you get
it.
the envelope and you're
no
shaking as you open it to find out what happened.
Instead you get like a jolt of energy when you see the email come through. It's very different from
when you have a verdict. The trials that I do now, which quite often are bench, it's the same thing. And some judges are like a week later, some are a month later, but it's always the same. It's like, okay, here I go. Click.
Here we go, hit send.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, I do criminal defense cases a lot, and there's nothing more heart palpitating than that. But these cases, every trial is a trial. You got to take it seriously, and you got to fight aggressively, no matter what forum. So that's what I've been up to.
Your clients are very lucky to have you.
Thank you.
So,
and yours too.
Yeah, I like to think that you're fighting aggressively for, as I say, to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Big cases, small cases, every client has that right. And, if you don't enjoy doing it, I don't know, maybe you ought to do something different. So
that's right.
All right, then. Well, once again, thank you so much. We'll catch you again. I may, have Linda join us sometime.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Two ladies against one man. I don't know.
I know.
Can you handle the heat? I don't know.
No, but that's my normal day. So
that's right.
All right. Well, good luck with
Michael.
everything. Thanks again.
Appreciate
We'll
it.
talk to you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Okay, Sarena Townsend, she was amazing. So fun. She was on, of course, Law and Crime when we were doing that thing. I think she actually started hosting toward the end of the run there, which kind of came out of the blue when they decided to stop doing that. I, of course, have since blamed her for causing that to happen. Just kidding. Just kidding. Anyway, so tomorrow, even though we'll keep an eye on this case, we're going to shift gears a bit, as we say. Doug Weinstein is going to be on. Now, you remember Jeffrey Williams, young thug. They've been fighting over his property forever. And you will find this hard to believe, Fulton County has screwed the pooch and have failed to do even the most rudimentary things they needed to do to protect this property. Remember, this is a case where the property becomes a party to the action. And the Commonwealth just acts kind of as the caretaker for the property, but they want to keep it, because if they keep it, then they get to keep the money, if that's what it is, or the Richard Mille watch, or whatever else there may be. They want to keep it. They put it in the coffers, and they spend it on prosecutors that don't deserve $600,000 a year. Anyway, tomorrow they're actually going to hear from Judge Whitaker. You remember Paige Whitaker, who took over the case from Judge Glanville. Of course, Doug Weinstein got his acquittal for his client, Yak Gotti, Diamante Kendrick. He'll be on. We're going to talk about that issue. It's going to, hopefully tomorrow will be a very interesting day in terms of resolution. Like almost literally, here, Jeffrey Williams, here's all the stuff that we've been holding on to forever. Then we're also going to talk about the Sarah Grace Patrick case, only because it was supposed to start Monday. It's a Georgia case. It did not start. It's in Carroll County. But we're going to go to our Georgia Bureau expert, which is Doug Weinstein. We'll get into all of those details. So hopefully you'll join us for that. All righty. Linda Kenny Baden back on Monday. She wraps up her stint at Harvard tomorrow, and we will be back at 6 o'clock to get into this with Doug. So join us then. Appreciate that. Michael Bryant here with Justice Serve TV. And please try to do the right thing.
On the sky,